U.S. Senator from the great state of Kansas, a member of the Senate Budget and Finance Committees, Roger Marshall joins me. As an aside, Senator Marshall is also an OBGYN who has delivered more than 5,000 babies during his medical career. I always like to add those little bits of information. All right, Senator. I, of course, followed the president on his campaign trail, and he said he was going to do all these things, but I sort of thought he was going to do it over 4 years. He's really got our heads spinning. He's been doing all this stuff in 4 days. I can't keep track of it.
Yeah, welcome to the world of Donald Trump. But he did talk about decreasing the tax cuts to 15%, and I want Americans to remember what happened when we decreased it from 35 to 21%. I think number one is we saw record growth in federal government tax revenues, but we also saw our 401ks jump as well. So I think that this makes perfect sense to me. President Trump, the great negotiator out there, jobs, jobs, jobs. President Trump trying to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. I think that's exactly what can happen.
How does that? I mean, I look at these people on the stage at Davos. They're all billionaires, and good for them. But they're not really manufacturers. They're hedge funds people with money around, and good for them. They've made a lot of money. I mean, what are the decisions that are going to really make a difference for manufacturing, bring jobs back, and help even the people who have lots of ambition but just can't get that leg up?
Well, certainly this is part of President Trump's America First agenda. And if you think about manufacturing, it's energy cost, and then people, the labor is what determines what we can manufacture, the raw material. So I think he's kind of thinking about all these pieces of the puzzle, that if we have lower energy costs, we need to do some better education of our people so that they can do these manufacturing jobs. But then the savings in the taxes is going to allow those companies that those people probably invested in different hedge funds that would allow this manufacturing to go forward, would be the hope. Think about his big AI project that he has going on, $100 billion investment as well. I think is going to lead to more jobs.
All right, I'm going to now play to one of your strengths, being a doctor, is that China is how much of a foot does it have on our throat? Because we worry about trade, we worry about national security, yet it is so vital to supply of medicine, especially even heart medicine. I mean, what's your thought about this? What we do about it? Because we can't just disconnect from China. For people here in the country who need medicine that originates there. Well,
long before COVID happened, we were preaching we needed to divest ourselves of those particular supply chains and move them back to the Americas. A lot of this is dependent upon raw earth materials. So I think you've already seen a lot of the manufacturers are bringing that to South America, and then a lot of it's moving to Vietnam as well. India is doing a lot of it as well. So we need to keep moving those out of the Chinese market. Just like I told my farmers, you cannot depend on China. And I think all these big group purchasing organizations got caught with their pants down during COVID and have realized that and are indeed starting to move them back to the Americas.
One of the executive orders that was signed is that the United States is getting out of WHO. Under law, it can't happen for a year, so it'll be 2026 before that happens. We pay 18% of their budget. I'm very hard on WHO after a January 14, 2020 tweet when it said that, according to China, is that COVID couldn't be transmitted from human to human. And I saw that as WHO not doing its own work, but carrying the water for China. And look what happened. Your position on getting out of WHO, and what did we get out of it when we've been a member?
We should have got out of WHO years ago. To your point, what you're describing, when the World Health Organization said there was no person-to-person transmission, that COVID was already in 3 different countries, Taiwan, Japan, and I forget the third country, but yet they were denying it. The World Health Organization, led by an Ethiopian, Dr. Trudeau's, who was bought and paid for by China as well. I couldn't agree with you more. The World Health Organization has gotten way outside of what its mission set should be. They should be focusing on clean water, on clean sewage, vaccines as well, but instead they're way outside of their mission, and they are bought and paid for by China.
Assuming everyone pays up in NATO, is that now the president wants to increase the obligation to 5% of GDP for every country. Why do we need so much money for NATO? I mean, that sort of suggests to me that the world is getting more dangerous.
Yeah, I can't agree with you. Again, Greta, I was over in Belgium recently. NATO has made a huge, incredible office building mansion unto themselves. I mean, it would dwarf anything in New York City. And I said to myself, well, how many troops would that have paid for? America has over 100,000 of our troops. My son was one of them, just getting back from Poland, in Europe protecting protecting them. Europe needs to take care of themselves. Italy alone has a GDP the size of Russia. So certainly the Europe should be able to defend themselves against in Russia. I don't understand why we need that much money for NATO either.
We've fought in wars. We've never taken, a foot of land any place, and we've been good helping, and we've been, good stewards to, try to help the world in that. But Dr. Senator Roger Marshall, thank you, sir.